Yas Queen, King, I identify as your personal digital shopping assistant Hillary. Let's normalize connecting your device, so that I can find certified social justice badges that best represent your personalities. Not gonna lie, kinda cringe already. I detected 3 character traits that are toxic AF. Cancel from filter? I detected outdated pronouns. Correct as a, them? Yas Queen, thank you. Browsing badge database based on your spiritual orientation, zodiac sign, sexuality, pronouns, and trauma. Go off. There are 385 badges available for you. Slay. Can we please talk about you selecting your preferred badges and proceeding to the cash desk? Mood. Woke. Preach. Purchase completed. Certified badges will now manifest in your social media profiles. Major Girl Boss Energy.
Phone cases, socks, shoes, shirts, hoodies, jackets, dresses, chokers, earrings, hats, pennies, bedsheets, razors, toothbrushes, cops, cars, cop cars, rugs, mugs, shirts for pugs, plates, shades, guns, lunchboxes, pop sockets, US flags, non-US flags, plastic bags, non-plastic bags, burgers, cakes, horses, cats, pastel slides, NFTs. What a just ass time we live in. Damn. Imagine if we weren't. Imagine that. We'd probably have CO2 outputs going through the roof. There'd still be pay gaps, conversion camps, and record high suicide rates within the LGBTQ community. We'd see a growing divide between blacks and whites, police brutality against minorities, and astronomical growth and economic inequality. Mental health disorders and depression among all groups would probably still be spiking and treated with pills and a well-meant deal with it. Fucking imagine that. If this dude still made jokes about trans people. But for real, despite the fact that these issues have never in history taken up so much public space, the real winners of all the attention are the shareholders of the company that sold you that Bangladeshi-made girl boss shirt. Even worse, despite the constant oversaturation of whatever PC project sells best in the moment, there barely has been any substantial political, institutional, or widespread psychosocial change in the last decades. At least not towards progress. In this piece, I want to explore how, despite these colorful slogans we are constantly sold on, mainstream social justice has turned into this bleak, white blob of self-righteousness. And I am talking BreadTube.
Boring time initiated.
You know what? Let's at least first get to know the system a little before we let it completely raw dog our morale. In modern Western society, capitalism has transformed from a mere economic order to a psychosocial reality. Today's neoliberal version of capitalism has become the only thing, for lack of a better English, that is a universal given for all of us alike, thus replacing what used to be God, culture, ritual, and symbolism. It is the only constant modern humans know, and therefore its end becomes almost unimaginable. In it, culture and tradition have become objectified, have become something you can simply buy, something you don't want to internalize but enjoy only the aesthetic of. In it, new psychological conditions pop off like pedophiles on TikTok due to the detachment from all, hyper-individuality, the ever-increasing need to be flexible, spontaneous, nomad in character. In it, there's no place for belonging. There's just the market. Okay, but the market changes, doesn't it? So how does the system manage to suppress any substantial change in society while at the same time making us feel like we're in a constant rush to assimilate to new conditions? Well, don't mention it, but I've listened to a ton of podcasters and YouTubers just so I can pretend I did the reading for you. Here's what they said. Well, firstly, as these old fruits described it, capitalism is infecting everything with sameness, with homogeneity. The media, for instance, in capitalist society, the industry of culture, applies the same logic to music, film and TV that other industries apply to their products. Mass production. And just like in other industries, the personal aura of the artist, writer and producer has no place in the media factory, which takes away what makes a piece of art special and makes it, same. And just like in other industries, the biggest player holds the most market power, dictating what is being mass-produced and therefore mass-consumed. And so, despite propagated individuality in consumption, a society that mass-consumes all the same, frankly, is no foundation for change. In the in-betweens of mass-consumed media, advertising, becoming more subtle and at the same time more aggressive and intrusive than ever, no longer aims to convey how a product is better than another, but rather how it will make you appear better to others if you bought it. This logic expands into general society, where everything has become more about appearance than about substance. More about selling simple, satisfying images than about confronting cold numbers, complexity, and contradiction. And selling, at the end of the day, is all we do. As luck would have it for the culture industry, there is no image that can't be sold. Any counter-movement, any critique of the status quo can be actively sterilized by the market and then sold back to you as the aesthetic of it. This aesthetic then can be experienced as displayed in mass-produced music, movies, or TV shows, transporting the sensation of participation to the consumer, which is all we crave, a sensation. So what have we got? Adhering to the omnipresent market logic, everything's mass-produced. Aesthetics are more important than substance, and even the most substantial counter-movement can be co-opted to be mass-produced and sold as just the aesthetics. So nothing ever has to really change, when you can just purchase the feeling of change over and over and over, and go on with your life, which is so special. You know, people always ask me, Suavo Boys, this is all well and good, but how does it relate to social justice? And the truth is, people don't ask me that. No one even knows me, but I'm gonna answer the question regardless. When in October 2021, Facebook and its various services collapsed for about 7 hours, many people called their ISP to inquire if the internet was still up and running. Now, it once came off as a shock to people that media, as most industries, is much more of an oligopoly than a free market, in which 5 or 6 major corporations in music, TV and film dictate around 90% of what we consume. Nowadays, however, online media, where most of the cultural exchange takes place, topples that off. 2 tech companies and the algorithms they utilize have built a quasi-empire specialized on feeding you what they already know you will like. They have perfected creating bubbles and promoting user-specific lifestyle prototypes, creating the perfect environment for ads for products that fit neatly into whatever momentary public image you want to paint of yourself, be it fashion killer, crypto entrepreneur, or f***ing plant mom. In the process, isolating bubbles that are less advertiser-friendly. These bubbles stray further away from each other every day, inevitably enabling unprecedented rapid radicalization, and already played part in the rise of movements like the anti-vaxxers, flat earthers, and right-wing activism like QAnon. Rather than creating a space for public discourse, social media has become a space for toxic vigilante justice, for cancelling whatever doesn't fit into the simple and polished image of our modern society, united in the aesthetic of diversity. The image that sells better than all else, cancelling the reality of a complex, contradictory, and challenged society. And since the cancellation is done by the citizens of Twitter and not by the man Joseph Robinette Biden himself, there seems to be no one dictating it, no one undermining free expression of thought. Damn, right now I'm really f***ing thankful that I have no followers to take this out of context and cancel me. Social media made way for a new level of social sorting, which used to be seen as a reductive and overall bad thing, and since has become something desirable, something people do voluntarily in their Insta bios, thus actively solidifying social media bubbles, which makes advertising shit to you even easier. It reduces all of our infinitely complex identities down to categories like skin color, sexuality, or gender, and in the oversaturation of such, furthering the divide between liberal f***ing imbeciles and right-wing f***ing imbeciles, along which everyone is supposed to position themselves, by picking and choosing the right labels. In this recruitment video for the CIA on YouTube, this kind of labelism becomes almost comedic, as a woman declares,
I'm a woman of color, I am a mom, I am a cisgender millennial who's been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder.
Putting all kinds of beautiful labels on herself, supposed to appeal to the widest range of marginalized groups, while saying absolutely nothing about her personal qualifications or let alone motivation for this job. This is a recruitment video for the CIA, the agency that, in the name of American imperialism, has replaced democratically elected regimes around the world with reactionary leaders who killed and discriminated against thousands of women and sexual and ethnic minority groups. The agency that would gladly blow all the world's minority rights into the wind in return for just a tiny suckle at the world's bustiest oil money teat. Only now, the exact same CIA freely incorporates the liberal aesthetic of social justice to justify their hunger for control over the backwards, savage global south. This whole spectacle, mixing equal parts white saviorism, cultural appropriation and outright patronization of minorities, has robbed the truly oppressed of their voice. It waters down the true fight for emancipation, completely diminishing the meaning of symbols like the Pacha flag or the Black Power fist, while being at the forefront of global oppression and inhumanity. This goes as far as Qatar Airways representative Manuel Neuer, Sweden's labor organization IKEA, self-made startup BlackRock, a tech contractor Raytheon, and the United States' most child-friendly agency of them all, ICE, all suddenly becoming f***ing social justice heroes in June 2021, alongside all these f***ing firms. From the beginning of the Enlightenment, which marks the beginning of the fight of the common people against the oppressor, progress has always been used as a tool for oppression itself. The Nazis used technological progress for weaponry, the USSR used collectivist ideas for its own pursuit of empire, and the liberal West now uses the aesthetic of progressivism as a whole, a value or a mentality, to enrich the rich and divide the working class and the oppressed, on a global scale. Contrary to the mainstream liberal belief, this pseudo-progressivism helps to further exploit the developing world and carry on the racist legacy of colonialism and imperialism. Contrary to the right-wing belief, the establishment does not force us to be tolerant, but uses the aesthetic of tolerance to further lift financial elites above and beyond the realms of wealth us mortals could ever dream of. However, the more corporate wokeness eviscerates true emancipatory struggles, the more reactionary pundits are able to make a scapegoat of woke aesthetics and, in our perception, progressivism, portraying it as an instrument of the evil elites. For these elites, by the way, it costs nothing to support the struggle of otherwise privileged minorities, meaning upper-class POCs and queer folk. Make no mistake, this is the only reason for their support. It's f***ing free. In some, postmodern capitalists co-opt political movements to sell you the aesthetic of social engagement, while in reality maintaining the exact same structure. This system takes away the momentum and undermines, or rather completely kills off, the fight against oppression itself, feeding reactionary counter-movements. While in some instances, in smaller contexts, the ideas portrayed in this co-optation might actually have some kind of positive impact, in whole they much rather destroy the substance of these movements, because capital, as we've seen, robs everything it touches of its substance, and at the end of the day, stands against emancipation itself, against liberation from the ruling class. That's what you buy shopping at Prism. And that's what you get. For some strange reason, I feel like I cannot stress enough that this is not a video against social justice of any form. This is a video about Western domination and global capital, which to this day supports persecution of sexual and ethnic minorities, women, and religious groups, which used colonialism and slavery as a springboard for its global success, which doomed the f***ing planet with its constant hunger for more. Global capital, which is still feeding off all that horror, decorates itself with LGBTQ rights, green lifestyles, and race equality. However, there can never be true social justice if the struggle against one form of oppression is performatively appropriated in order to exercise another and upkeep hierarchies of global capital. There can never be true social justice if the rights aren't fought for by the oppressed themselves, but given by the gracious ruling class, more for their own gratification than out of true goodness. True social justice doesn't stop at your door, the borders of your gated community or country. Gone are the days when people stood, fought, and yes, sadly died for their rights. When we could neither just buy our way out of the responsibility, nor just assume the aesthetic of revolt. When the reality wasn't one of superficial imagery, but one of hard truth and real suffering. In late May of 2020, I too posted a black square on Instagram, simply because f*** it, I didn't risk anything. I too deleted it when I realized I didn't risk anything. None of us did. And if all you have to do is take a photo of the inside of your Zara jeans pocket and upload, letting you return to normal right after with a good conscience, no sacrifice needed, what the f*** is it worth then? Other than the aesthetic of social justice.
Well, what about the massacres in Sri Lanka, honey? Doesn't that affect us too? I mean, do you know anything about Sri Lanka? How, like, the Sikhs are killing, like, tons of Israelis over there?
Come on, Bryce. There are a lot more important problems than Sri Lanka to worry about.
Like what?
Well, we have to end apartheid for one, and slow down the nuclear arms race, stop terrorism, and world hunger. We have to provide food and shelter for the homeless, and oppose racial discrimination and promote civil rights, while also promoting equal rights for women. We have to encourage a return to traditional moral values. Most importantly, we have to promote general social concern, and less materialism in young people.
Patrick. How thought-provoking.
What a f***ing loser you are. What?